Welcome to the Popcorn Talk Network, for the online broadcast network that features movie discussion, news, and interviews. Press 1.
Popcorn Talk. We talk movies. In a world where action movies are constantly exploding at the box office, our heroes take on the monumental task of dissecting and analyzing all aspects of action movies to truly understand what it takes to make a great action film. Ben Bateman, Andrew Ghai, in a Popcorn Talk Network exclusive. This is Action Movie Anatomy.
Boom! What's up, everybody? Welcome to the show. Welcome to Action Movie Anatomy. Happy Wednesday morning. I'm your host, Ben Bateman. This is Action Movie Anatomy on Popcorn Talk, the online network talking movies, all things related to movies. I'm joined today by my excellently dressed, in a tie today, co-host, Mr. Andrew Ghai.
Dylan!
You son of a
bitch!
Make it easy on yourself, Dutch.
CIA got you pushing too many pencils, huh?
What's with this fucking pie business?
What is that?
What's up, guys? So happy to see you, so happy to be here. I love this movie, and we are joined by our good friend.
Yeah, this is an aspiring writer, a talented graphics designer, a creative personality, and somebody who loves science fiction films, Mr. Jason Sparich.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you. You don't want to do like a silly accent?
You don't want to.
That was your chance.
My deep voice.
Okay, fair enough. You'll be the Bill Duke of the panel. We today, guys, are doing Predator. Now, Predator is one of my absolute favorite films in the history of movies. I mean, this is a movie that, like, it's one of those films that it comes back, I watch it again, and I can't quite believe it's as good that, like, on the 12th viewing and the 15th viewing. It's so incredible every time. It's like, it's one of these movies that just it doesn't seem to age at all.
It hasn't aged at all. Like, this movie came out a year before we were both born. I know, Jason, it was out for a little while for you.
10 years old.
You could watch this movie like every couple months, and it would still be fantastic.
Yeah, I mean, I often do watch it every couple months.
The action's good. The acting is exactly what you want out of this movie. And the Predator's terrifying.
It's really extremely well done. Stan Winston is a genius.
Yeah,
a visionary of his time.
And thank God he came on, because before that, Arnold said that it looked like what did he say?
It's some weird, like, one-eyed cyborg looking thing.
With tentacles.
Yeah.
So when they changed it, he was like, thank God. And then they renamed the movie Predator from Hunter. So, man, this movie is
good choice.
Fantastic.
Yeah, it's a huge one. So I want to cue the trailer right now. It's an okay trailer. It's one of the interesting trailers. It's it's in that phase when they hadn't quite figured out how to make them dramatic.
Right.
It's where, like, the voice on all the trailers was like, in a world dominated by such and such.
It's still kind of cheese.
Yeah.
Assassins.
Every line he has in the movie is my favorite line.
Yeah, I literally have, for favorite line, I have like 15 written down throughout the whole movie.
It's because, like, later in films when Schwarzenegger, like, was in on the joke, I feel like,
right,
and he already was in on the joke here, clearly.
Yeah.
But, like, a lot of movies play on that. They really like try to take advantage. And in this movie, most of what he says, he's not really in on the joke. He's like saying the lines in total seriousness.
Well, yeah. So that part during the village takeover when he like throws the knife and sticks the guy to the post, he's like, "Stick around."
That's improvised.
That's improvised.
Yeah.
That's what he thought that hero should say in that moment.
And it's like we're in such a different time now that this kind of movie, if a movie like this gets made now, it's like John Wick is sort of the example of a movie where it's like kind of like this.
Right, but John Wick's much more serious.
Yeah.
But then Commando comes out,
the year before this.
Okay, and the whole movie is
it's a cheesy
one-liner.
Yeah.
So it's great that he still says them, but it's a little bit...
It's reeled in a little bit. Yeah, absolutely.
The trailer also shows, by the way, way too much of what happens in the movie.
Yeah.
It shows Weathers dying. Spoiler alert.
Yeah.
It shows Shane Black being dragged off. Hawkins.
Yep, right there. And there's Bill Duke. He's about to die. Like it's.
They show the one-armed Carl Weathers.
Yeah, it's a bummer. Like, this is. I memean, maybe this is the same thing as what happens in movies now when they think they're not going to be successful. They try to show you everything
cool,
but then that just ruins it.
If it bleeds, we can kill it.
It's another good line.
Yes.
The whole movie is good lines.
That was actually cut from Conan right there. The amount of shreddedness and jackness for this
in this
cast
movie
is just phenomenal.
What's the funniest part is that like characters like Sonny Landham, who plays Billy, or like Jesse Ventura,
Right.
Bill Duke, the characters that are like less jacked than the rest of the cast, they like look like softies compared just because you have like Schwarzenegger and Weathers running around, just looking just super yoked.
But then when Billy drops his gun and takes off his shirt, you're like, holy shit.
Yeah, well, you're also like he's jacked, but he's no Schwarzenegger.
He's no He's no Weathers, no
But
Schwartz.
then again, who is a Schwarzenegger? 8-time Mr. Olympia.
Nobody.
I mean, he lost 20 pounds to play the role. He got just leaned
Yeah,
out.
because they're like, you got to look like a lean commando, not just a bodybuilder.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Just a stud. Just an absolute stud. So let's get into this, guys. So the way we do this on the show is we like to engage you at first here. The very first thing we do is we are gonna share our thesis statement, our bold statement. So this is kind of a strong thought that we all come up with that we really think sells the movie for us in some way. It's not opinion based. It's not like this is my favorite part of the movie. It's like this is the greatest this, or this is the first time in history that this happened, and that is what this is about. So we are going to share our thesis statements right now. I'm going to start with our guest, Mr. Jason Sparich. Jason, what's your thesis statement?
My thesis statement is, I guess with late 70s from, let's say, 1980 on, this was the first alien bad guy on Earth. Now, you had Superman, E.T., Starman, who came to Earth, but they were cute and had elongated heads and necks and stuff. But everything else at this time was set in space or on an alien planet. So this is the first time there's a bad guy alien on Earth.
On Earth, hunting people.
I hadn't thought about that. I suppose that's true. Do you think that there's like any kind of obscure or rare sci-fi movie that we don't know about?
So I went back and I was looking at the late 70s and then the 80s until this movie, and there's nothing.
Okay.
If there was, we could call it blockbusters.
Right.
You know?
And like, I guess I could also, put on there that let's exclude like an invasion or a group. So Superman 2 had, Zod and but that's a group and
they're humanoids.
Yeah, yeah.
Well,
yep, but they're aliens.
Yeah, exactly.
Speaking of your thesis statement, I did forget to mention we have these rules, these loose rules we use to define the films, and one of the rules, there's 5 of them that are kind of loose, is that the films we are talking about on this show were made in 1981 or later. Mm-hmm. So a lot of the things you're referencing pre-81 are sort of less relevant to what we're talking about here. So but especially 81 forward, I think you're absolutely right. You're dead on with that. Rule number 2 would be that the hero always plays by their own rules.
Dutch definitely plays by his own rules.
Yeah, of course. Rule number 3 is that the movie is driven by a police, military, or political figure. Rule number 4 is that the hero and the villain are always the smartest people or figures or whatever in the room.
Predators definitely the smartest.
Just very smart. Yeah. Rule number 5 is that there's at least one explosion. So we used to stick to these rules really carefully. They're not as important to us quite as much anymore.
This hits it on the head.
Yeah, we start to find out that even though we kind of have regressed from the rules being as important, almost every movie we do still falls perfectly in line.
Well, there was a solid 25 or 30 movies that came to mind when we wanted to make this show happen, and we tried to look at the similarities between those 30 movies or so. It was probably more like 50, and most of them hit all the rules on the head, and I know that this is one of the first ones that came to mind for us. So this is dead on, of course. This is an action classic. All right, anyway, moving on. What is your thesis statement, Drew?
So it's interesting because this is a franchise movie and there's been like 5 installments of it. But for me, this is the biggest missed success for a franchise ever.
In sequels, I mean.
In sequels, everything. Yeah, I mean, you got Alien vs. Predator, you got Predator 2. All these movies, they suck.
You mean in terms of quality, not in terms of money making?
Yeah, no.
Yeah.
Predators
but again,
wasn't that bad, right? The Predators, you remember
was
that?
fine. It was all right.
You're right. It wasn't at the
but
caliber.
even in money making, this movie still made the most money adjusted.
Yeah, box office total.
The only one that made more was Alien vs. Predator, and that's 20 years later.
And not particularly good.
Not good.
No.
This movie was the most successful of the franchise, which is surprising to me, and Arnold probably didn't want to do another one, or he was too busy, or whatever it was. This movie and this franchise was they just missed. Like, it could have been so much more.
Completely.
Like, if he came back 3 years later and did Predator 2, he's already the best. That's why they bring him in for number 1. Then he's the best that's already killed a predator.
Right.
Bring him back.
They should have. Absolutely. It is the big... I mean, to your point, it's the greatest missed sequel opportunity for quality in the history of action films. And I would agree that's dead on.
Yeah.
That's completely dead on.
It's amazing that Danny Glover was cast, but it worked for a sequel at that time, I guess.
Well, there was a couple things going on, right? As we said, we're assuming, we don't know the details, but we are assuming that Schwarzenegger didn't do the second film for whatever reason, because he was doing other things. Because his
career was blowing up.
Yeah, I mean, he was the biggest star on the planet, and they had just seen the success of Danny Glover and Gary Busey together in Lethal Weapon 1 just a few years prior, so I'm sure they were like, we'll just throw these two guys in the movie together. Busey, Glover.
Right.
Yeah.
These are big names. They're action names. People want to see these guys on screen again. Busey was great in Lethal Weapon 1. Yeah.
And this goes with a comment that someone said. He said, would you guys like for them to make a reboot or another sequel?
Well, they're going
it's on
to.
our live stream.
Shane
They
Black
are.
might be making it, right?
Shane Black, who plays Hawkins in this movie, is making another one. God, I hope it's as good as this.
I
But
just
it's
hope
not a
that
reboot, right? It's there's
I
those
don't
two.
think so. Yeah, I think it's more of a sequel.
Yeah.
I think. But the thing about that movie was that it was last year. There was a Deadline or Variety article that announced it, but nothing much has happened in terms of production since. And Black is, for those of you who don't know who Shane Black is, we'll get to him in just a second. Though actually maybe we won't because he didn't write it. So Shane Black is the guy that wrote Lethal Weapon 1. That was his big credit originally, was that he got paid a bunch of money, and then later on he went on to write a bunch of famous movies. He ended up directing Kiss Kiss Bang Bang, writing and directing Iron Man 3.
During filming this, he was writing Last Boy Scout, right?
Yeah, so he's a big Joel Silver guy that he worked with, and he, the fact that he plays Hawkins, who's the funny character with the glasses who makes the pussy jokes,
Right. It's perfect because in his scripts, he constantly has these things that people refer to as Shane Blackisms.
Yeah.
That are kind of like that bro-ish, kind of douchey thing, but it paints a picture in your head of exactly what you're thinking about, or what he's thinking about.
So that's pretty funny. But he is apparently going to write and direct the newest installment of the Predator franchise, and I think I have faith in Shane Black. He's fantastic. He should be able to do a good job with it.
Absolutely.
Because I believe, was it Robert Rodriguez who did Predators? Is that right?
Yes.
Yeah, and it was fine.
It was fine. It wasn't great. It wasn't bad. It was fine.
It wasn't something like this where you can talk about it almost 30 years later and you're just like, God, this movie's so good.
Blown away.
It was just campy. It was, and I don't know what you're doing casting Adrian Brody as the lead in your movie.
I know.
I mean, it's a
Didn't
cool
mind.
idea.
He was
like
doing,
different,
his
so
career
that
was in a
different.
good place
Yeah.
at that time. Ben.
Okay, Predator is a slasher film masquerading in an action movie's body. That is like, and I think by default is one of the 5 most intelligent action movies ever made. For that, it's the perfect amount of suspense. You don't really realize it when you think about it in retrospect that this is in fact actually just a slasher film. But the way that each character is picked off one by one, you don't see the bad guy for quite a bit of the movie.
Yeah.
There's one character that leads it that seems to kind of know what's going on more than anyone else. And, as most of these slasher movies end up, except for the really grim ones, 1 or 2 people survive, and everyone else dies. And there's an epic confrontation at the end, and that's exactly what happens in this film.
I can't imagine how scary this movie was when it came out. Like,
Terrifying.
Yeah, it must have been absolutely terrifying.
I saw it in the theaters. I was 10.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I saw Aliens, which was probably still to this day my favorite movie of all time. It's
the previous year, right? 86?
Before,
Yeah.
and I was blown away. So then when I saw this, for 10 years old, 9 years old, Aliens was crazy, and then this at 10 was pretty amazing.
Yeah.
I mean, I saw this movie for the first time when I was about 10 years old. I was camping with a buddy. We were in the RV, his parents' RV, and his dad was watching Predator, one of his favorite movies of all time.
Yep.
Which I know that
It's one of my dad's favorite movies of all time. Yeah.
I remember when it showed him ripping out Billy's spine as a
great
kid,
scene.
and I was like, holy shit.
Yeah.
This is terrifying.
Yep.
You see the tentacles come out of the water, and then finally at the end, with the kind of like mini montage of Arnold getting prepped and the Predator getting prepped, you see his skin and his body, and you're like, oh God, he's just creepy. Even now, he's still creepy.
I remember one of my childhood, my older brother's 9 years older than me, and I remember his good buddy had a Predator mask, like a full size, like rubber one that he had bought for Halloween one year that was like on his wall. And he always had, and we'd go over for dinner sometimes, and I'd like look in his room, and it was like, he was like pretty gothic. There was like skulls and stuff, and I always would see the Predator mask. And like as a little kid, I mean, I describe it as gigantic. It was probably like this big because I was like 5 or whatever.
Yeah.
But I do remember, my dad is like, he always would talk about this movie as like, oh yeah, Predator's a great film. And like, it's funny because we do the thing critically where we talk about movies we like and then we degrade them a little bit because they're not quality. But as we've gotten older, I feel like we're more willing to accept these movies that sort of we don't want to give the quality rating to as actually great. Like in my teenage years, I would have probably watched this and been like, well, it's ridiculous and silly, but it's really entertaining. Whereas like now I watch this movie and I'm like, no, it's actually just really good.
Well, yeah, because it's aged so long, and you go back and you look at it as we're almost 30 years old, and you watch that and you're like, wow, this is still a good movie.
And with the Cold War going on in the 80s and, like Platoon and these jungle movies also like at the same time, I thought it was amazing that they're like, look, if you're American or whatever, like this is like warfare in the jungle, but now it's an alien who, it's completely like different enemy that, you had to face. And maybe this could happen, Right.
I mean, the part of this movie that when I watched it again recently that really kind of blew my mind was we all know the thing you and I did, the Dylan, you son of a bitch. That's one of the funniest parts of the movie. It's classic. It's action movie lore. And
Absolutely.
It's great. But it starts there, and they all get out of the helicopter, and then they're in the helicopter, and Little Richard is playing, and it's real fun, and you're getting the introduction to all the characters. Mac is shaving with he's shaving with Cold
Even
Sweat.
though the helicopters are like this the whole time, he's just shaving.
Like he's shaving.
Wow.
Jesse Ventura's chewing.
Carl, shitload of tobacco.
Yeah, Carl Weathers is like Dylan is like he's like 1976. Me and Dutch each got one of these. Like no one's impressed.
Right.
Like, everybody's kind of doing their thing. Hawkins is telling jokes. Billy's real serious. They're setting the stage, and it's real fun. And then this amazing thing happens, and I didn't remember this until like the last time I watched it, where they cut the music. And the red light starts flashing, and Schwarzenegger like puts his hand up, and it's like radio silence, and no one's talking. And it just you look down for a second, you see it's the jungle.
Yeah.
And these guys are about to jump out of a helicopter into the jungle in the middle of the night in dead silence with no backup. And you're like, as silly as this is, that's a terrifying thought.
Absolutely.
And these guys are just ready, like they're actually badasses. And it was effective, I thought, enough to the point that I was like, man, if this was a drama or a war movie, it would have the same effect on me if it was done the same way.
Absolutely.
Even though this is kind of a cheeseball action movie.
Use green instead of red now. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So I thought that was pretty amazing. So before we get into star profiles, I do want to share our fist pump moment. And fist pump moment for you guys that are watching, if you want to get in on this with us, you can tweet at us, leave it in the comments. This is the kind of that moment where you're watching and you're at home and maybe you're by yourself, maybe you've had a glass of wine, I don't know, whatever. You're looking around, something awesome happens, and you're like, are you seeing this right now? Is anyone seeing what's happening?
Right.
Like, it's like the fist pump, like it's kind of like an FEI moment.
Definitely an FEI moment.
Yeah.
Fist yeah.
Yeah, fist yeah. And that's kind of what we do here. And it can be anything. It can be an awesome explosion. It can be a one-liner. It can just be like it can be the credits. It can be the first time you see a character, the sound someone makes, the look one character gives another, something that you just like, yes, I fucking love this. It's awesome.
Yeah.
So did you guys prepare your fist pump moments?
Absolutely we did.
I've got two.
Okay, please share them.
The first was the first laser to brain explosion when Mac gets it.
Oh.
So you saw the Predator kind of shoot, I think, a couple times. But
you see
you
him
never
shoot
saw
Hawkins.
the 3 dots.
Yeah.
And then you're like, what the heck? And then, boom, like the camera's behind him, brain blows up.
Yeah.
And it's blood all on the camera. I was like, that's a great way to start.
Oddly
I
enough,
love
though.
that moment. Yeah, but when we were watching it the other day, I noticed that. Okay, so you get the 3 dots on the arm, travels up to his head, and then you get the camera behind his, just like huge,
Yeah.
and then you see him laying on the ground later. And it looks like he probably got like shot with a 22.
I did notice that also when
Weather season.
and it's kind of
Yeah. But still, absolutely awesome because it is the classic try.
Yeah.
My second one, I think, will be the same as yours, but mine will be added to it. So why don't you guys go next?
Okay, yeah.
Okay, so I have 2 as well. I'll do my other one because I feel like the one where. Yeah, whatever.
Yeah.
So the first one is it's the beginning. It's when they're all getting out
the
of
establishing
the
shot?
Yeah, the establishing
so
shot.
sweet.
Everybody.
Yeah.
You get Ventura, you get Billy, you get all the guys
Coming off the
up and shave. Yeah, the very first time they do. And then there's just Arnold sitting in the back, lean as ever, sucking
Dutch,
on his
smoking
cigar.
the cigar, yeah.
And then he like throws his bag out and jumps out. You're just like, look at this team of badasses. It's like that moment in MacGruber
Yeah.
when he like talks about all the guys, this like perfect team of killer stoppers.
Yeah.
That's them. They are the perfect team.
Oh, and I love how like they the way they outfit each character. Like Bill Duke has on like the suit,
Yeah.
and Billy's in the tracksuit. And like Jesse Ventura is like the high-waisted jeans with the sunglasses,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? And like Schwarzenegger's in like the fucking super tight red polo.
Yeah.
It's just great.
The aviators and the cigar.
That's like one of the things about this movie that I remember the very most is that shot. It's just excellent.
You're like, I want to see these guys do anything.
Yeah.
I'm so ready for the next hour and 40 minutes.
Yeah, it's just a team of badasses.
Yeah.
So
Killer stoppers. I
Killer
believe.
stoppers. And then they walk in and the general's like, it's been a long time, Dutch. And he's like, he goes, you look good, Dutch. And he goes, it's been a long time, General. Like every line that he says is my favorite line.
Classic, yeah.
So I think my favorite, I had a couple. I mean, I have a ton of fist bump moments in this movie, but the one when I was watching it again yesterday that stuck out to me was it's like the whole sequence where he's getting like covered in mud and ready to fight the Predator. So he covers himself in mud and he lights the torch.
It's almost a montage, but not a cheesy montage.
Yeah, it's not-
They didn't do it.
They didn't do it like with like heavy music and
It
like
was
quick cuts. It's like
so
slower
well done.
cuts and
Because you're totally ready. So,
progression.
so I love, first of all, I love when he does the mud and then he the torch is
Yeah.
that I love. But the one that I actually found myself even more like yes, and this is little, but it's when he's got the spear with the knife on it,
Yeah.
and he's like weaving through the jungle with the spear and the knife, and there's like the upper shot and then the left shot,
Yeah.
and I was like, yes, Schwarzenegger, he's hunting. Yeah.
There's like an angry old man walk going on.
Well,
while he's
and
going
also
through there.
because he's got the mud and his eyes, they look super white
white,
and crazy.
yeah.
I just love it.
So my second one was on the
Yeah.
roar. It cuts to the Predator going
Yeah.
like, what the?
Yeah.
Like,
Right.
He's coming, and then so he heats up
Yeah.
his claws, and that I think was more of my fist pump than even Arnold doing it, just because I'm
Yeah.
like, whoa. The Predator is just like, okay, yeah.
I think
I'm gonna get ready for this guy.
this whole like progression of the scene is like you realize that the Predator is like, holy shit.
Yeah.
Like I'm in for it. This is battle. This is warfare. Before it's like shooting fish in a barrel.
Yeah.
He is literally, there's no competition. Like
No.
he gets shot a little bit, but that's because they unload like over
Everything.
10,000 rounds
80 rounds.
blankly.
80 rounds in the minigun.
Yeah, no, he's like 200 rounds in a minigun. I watched a video of my friend shooting a minigun the other day, by the way. 200 rounds in a minigun, it's like that. It's gone. Cost him $100. It lasted for less than 5
Yeah,
seconds.
the ammunition that he'd have to carry.
To be able to
that.
run the gun as long as he was. I always remember as a kid that one of the things that's just blazed into my memory is the sound of the minigun whirring after
Yeah,
he
oh,
runs
yeah.
out.
Yeah, and he's just
And
sitting there
smoke.
holding, and he's like
Yeah.
sweating. They actually had to slow down the shooting of that
Yeah.
minigun because they wanted to be able to catch the barrels moving on camera. Because
Yeah.
it's too fast otherwise.
I just love he sees Blaine get shot. He's like, "Dodge!" I don't even know what he says. He just starts unloading. That's incredible. All right, let's get into star profiles. I want to talk about a little bit of where the stars of this film were when their career was made. So I think it's pretty clear that these two guys, Schwarzenegger and Weathers, are the stars of the film.
Straight up.
They're the big names. You have Apollo Creed and you have the Terminator. And basically, Schwarzenegger had actually had three. I mean, I'm not going to call them unsuccessful or bad because they weren't. Raw Deal, Commando, and Red Sonja, they're all relevant films, but none of them are relevant like some of his bigger hits were.
Right.
Commando, I guess, of the three of them is the one that you would point to.
Definitely.
But Commando's a very silly movie. It made money and people saw it, but it's super funny. Red Sonja is the third film in the Conan franchise about the title character Red Sonja. Not a good movie at all.
That's the one that made him just like, I'm done with that franchise. 'Cause
Yeah.
They moved that movie to PG-13, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yep.
that was his big complaint.
And then Raw Deal is fine, but like...
That was the Russian. He was the Russian.
No, that's Red Heat. I think.
Red Heat. Sorry.
Exactly. Red Heat, Raw Deal. These are the 80s
That's
Schwarzenegger
how
movies that just get
important
kind
they
of
are.
lost. So, I mean, not particularly good. It's just like a Schwarzenegger, like, I think it's like a revenge movie. I can't quite remember. But Predator is so much better than those movies. And you jump back, and 84 is Terminator 1, right?
Yeah.
So
Year before.
Yeah, so his three hits before this, or three movies, I guess, like that's just what Schwarzenegger was doing. He was establishing himself as the biggest action star in the world at the time.
It's crazy how much better his accent got over the 3 years. From Terminator 1 to this.
Well, his accent in this is
I am a
perfect.
robot.
It's
Perfect.
It's the best version of the Schwarzenegger accent to me because it's just, it's like crisp, but it's not perfect.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, he's
Everything
like
he
confident in
says-
his delivery.
That's exactly what it is. He's
it's
confident
not
in his
good.
delivery, but it's
Yeah.
not good. That's like one of my favorite lines in the whole movie is when like, he gives his first line, he's been a long time general, and then like, he does an introduction, the guy's like, we need to get this cabinet minister, and he's like, this cabinet minister, does he always travel on the wrong side of the water? Like, it's just like the way that he says his lines, it's just amazing. The confidence behind them is what makes it so incredible.
Absolutely.
So, all right, so then you look at Weathers, and we all know Weathers as Apollo Creed, and rightfully so. 85, he did Rocky 4. 82, he did Rocky 3. And then 81, he did Death Hunt, which is a Charles Bronson, Lee Marvin movie.
Right.
It's like, I want to say it's a Western or something like that. I don't...
He had basically done nothing other than TV movies and TV series and films that you didn't really care about, and then it was just Rocky franchise.
Yeah, so
Like what made him...
But then he just died in Rocky 4, so...
He has three relevant characters in his career, and that is Dylan, that is Chubbs,
And Creed.
and Creed.
Action Jackson.
Yeah, and Action Jackson.
Yeah, that's true.
But that was a flop.
That was
It was.
It was pretty bad.
Yeah. So I think that's pretty interesting. I mean, their interplay between these two characters is really wonderful. Like, Schwarzenegger obviously is the star of the film, and he's
Right.
the most memorable badass. But Weathers definitely has some great moments. And when you think about,
Yeah.
I mean, obviously they're Dylan, you son of a bitch. That's like one of the iconic moments in Schwarzenegger lore. But then you also have all the moments of where like in the jungle, like his character's being exposed as being a slime ball.
Yeah.
Like I love when Schwarzenegger's like, he said to him, he's like, heat seekers. You hear that, Dylan? That's pretty sophisticated for some half-ass mountain boys.
Yeah,
And he's
exactly.
like, they're getting better prepared every day, Dutch. Like,
Yeah. Well, it's like it's funny because when like I said, I watched this movie when I was 10, and I only watched it like maybe 2 more times up until recently for the show.
Yeah.
And just you and I drinking wine and being like, we should turn on Predator.
Yeah.
That doesn't happen. That happens.
A reason that I actually own this movie, like a digital copy, because we just bought it like several months ago.
I totally forgot that Carl Weathers is like the bad guy in this movie.
Yeah.
He's like he's the schmuck. He's the conniving like.
Who redeems himself?
He redeems himself. That's such a style, Dylan. I
Yeah.
picked up some bad habits from you.
Yeah.
Love them both. Love them. Yeah. Anyway, we can kind of get into production development. Who made the movie? Who's behind it? Pretty big production team. I mean, this is one of Joel Silver's a legend, obviously. Yeah, The Matrix. Die
I love that
Hard.
one of his
legend.
very first movies was Xanadu.
Yeah.
Which
One of the biggest flops ever.
Well, yeah. Well, it's
Well, at the time,
a
it was
romance musical
groundbreaking.
sci-fi. And the only reason I've even seen this movie is because the show How Did This Get Made?
Yeah.
The podcast covered it, and I went to go see it live, so I had to watch this movie. Thank God I was drinking.
Yeah.
Because that movie was so hard to watch. It's so bad.
Yep.
But it's so bad that it's good.
It's one of the classics.
And it's hilarious to think that this guy, Joel Silver, who is definitely one of the greatest action movie producers of all time.
Of all time.
You got the Matrix series, you got Die Hard, you've got V for Vendetta.
the
There's
Lethal Weapon
everything.
franchise,
Yeah,
Predator.
Yeah.
I mean,
it's
This-
endless.
Amazing.
he hasn't been as prolific the last 15 years. I mean, he's made a lot of movies, but they haven't
Yeah.
been very good.
Yeah, I mean, they're not going to be... I mean, V for Vendetta is one of those movies that will stick around for a very long time, and then the Matrix ones, but that was a little before that. Yeah.
80s, 90s was his bread and butter.
Yeah,
And then
he was killing it.
mid 2000s, early 2000s, he was decent, but by the mid 2000s, 05, 06, he was starting to really fall off. The last decade has not been super kind to Joel Silver in terms of a quality standpoint.
Yeah, honestly, the last decade for everyone that produced this movie, or that was in the production development of this movie, the writers, the director, everything.
I mean, the writers just stuck with the franchise. Like
Well, yeah, well,
2 and then Alien, right?
Yeah, all the Alien movies. And,
Yeah.
they're brothers, Jim and John.
Yeah, they haven't written anything relevant for 15 years or 12 years. Lawrence Gordon and John Davis, they're the other major producers on this, and they're guys that have worked with Silver over the years. Lawrence Gordon worked on Die Hard with him. He worked on Boogie Nights. He did Watchmen, which was pretty successful. John Davis,
Boogie Nights.
iRobot. He did the entire Dr. Dolittle franchise, Waterworld, and he just actually The Man from U.N.C.L.E., which comes out this weekend, I believe, is also that's John Davis production.
Interesting.
We should do Dr. Dolittle on this show.
It's probably qualifies as a category.
Definitely one explosion.
Oh yeah.
Of laughter. All right, I'm done. Let's just keep moving on.
I mean, whatever. Like, these are action movie producers. These were heavy hitters in the 80s and 90s. Silver is kind of like one of these guys we talk about, like Bruckheimer, where he was so successful that after that first run of Lethal Weapon and Predator and the movies that he was making in the mid-80s, he worked with a lot of the same producers, very much like we said last week on Con Air, where anytime that Bruckheimer would work on a film, he'd have his sort of rotating cast of creative people and producers that he would just bring into the project. And if you look at all their filmographies, their biggest credits are almost always Bruckheimer movies, and for the most part, it's the same with these other producers. A lot of their biggest hits were Joel Silver movies.
Yeah.
So
for him, it's like all Joel Silver's got going on now is the Sherlock franchise, which is great.
Yeah.
I actually really like that franchise.
it's made money.
But it's very interesting to see how much these guys found a niche in that perfect 80s to 90s, filmmaking.
Yeah, now Jim and John Thomas, the brothers, the writers, they're great because they continue to get paid money based on writing credits for the Predator franchise.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Every one that gets made.
Yeah, just characters. Yeah.
Yeah, credited as character writers. But aside from that, I mean, this was the movie that launched their career.
Yeah.
They had a few credits before this, but this is the big one. And then
this was the first movie they ever wrote.
This was the first one.
the
There's
very
no
first
TV
one.
credits. There's a small stuff after this.
Well, film. I don't know, but I don't think there was anything before
Okay.
this. This was also Shane Black and Ventura's debut.
Acting.
In acting.
Yeah.
And this is the first movie they wrote. And then they went on to do things like Wild Wild West and Behind Enemy Lines. Which,
Yeah.
when I was a kid, Behind Enemy Lines was entertaining.
There is a certain amount of I think excuse that you can sort of, it's like you want to believe that like a writer is going to have this stretch of great films. But when you deal with like big budget action movies, you have to sort of just like tip your hat to the writer, like go get that money, man. Because at the end of the day, you write your script and you sell it, and the movie gets made, and you probably lose complete creative control.
Yeah,
they butcher it, they edit
butcher
it, they cast what they want to cast, and if the movie turns out to be good, great. If the movie turns out to be bad,
this will be your career where you just get paid residuals for your characters.
So those movies you talked about, Last Boy Scout, Behind Enemy Lines, Wild Wild West.
Yeah.
These are movies where you're like, way to go.
Last Boy Scout was Shane Black, but yeah.
Yeah. But it's like, way to go. Way to get paid to write these big budget
I
movies.
think the production cost on Wild Wild West was outrageous.
Well, that movie was massive. Yeah, exactly. I mean, that was like, but that was also like the second to last thing or third to last thing that people were like, oh, we'll give you a chance.
What was the movie that we talked about? Was it Air Force? What was the movie we talked about where it was like such and such didn't want to do the film because they're like and the producer insisted that there had to be a giant mechanical spider,
and then he made
years later it appeared in Wild Wild West.
Yes.
Yeah.
I can't remember what that was.
I can't remember which one it is either, but yeah, I know exactly.
But Joel Silver insisted, and then he ended up putting the giant mechanical spider in Wild Wild West,
which was incredible,
amazing.
Oh, I hate
Absolutely
that movie.
Incredibly bad.
Yeah,
but it has a great soundtrack.
And then you get into McTiernan.
Yeah,
you know.
So this is a really interesting one, right? John McTiernan.
Yeah, I mean, like this guy was a guy that you thought, based off what he did with like Die Hard and obviously Predator, you thought this guy, Hunt for Red October,
seemed like he was going to own the action world. I mean, that three right there you just named.
Yeah, those are all classics.
Incredible stretch.
Yeah. In the most recent success that he had was the Thomas Crown Affair, which I love, the remake of that.
It's like 99?
Yeah, 99. And
with Pierce Brosnan?
Brosnan.
Yeah.
Brosnan.
Yeah. The end of that movie is awesome.
I've never
seen it. Heist at the end. Oh, it's great. But yeah, you thought this guy was going to be great, and then he just completely fell off after this.
Went psycho?
Predator, Die Hard, Hunt for Red October are great, but then he did The Medicine Man. He got a lot of that was not a good movie. Very bad reviews. Same with Last Action Hero. Someone referred to Last Action Hero as a 2-hour-long Saturday Night Live skit.
It's pretty silly. I had a band in high school
Ridiculous.
called Last Action Hero, just for the
Also
record.
pretty silly.
Yeah.
Didn't do well either.
And it was an unsuccessful commercial endeavor.
And then he kind of like he redeemed himself with Die Hard with a Vengeance.
Great.
It was
movie.
like
great
it's
movie.
great. We will do that on the show Sunday. I love that movie.
It's 20 years old.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's still incredibly watchable.
So McTiernan has the particularly hilarious piece. I mean, not hilarious. He went to prison.
Yeah.
He has the particularly odd piece of trivia where he hired a PI to investigate a former co-producer
On Rollerball.
the film Rollerball.
Yeah.
Was caught, lied to the FBI, and ended up in prison. I think just got out this last
He
year.
lost everything.
Yeah.
Literally everything. Bankrupt, lost ranch, everything.
I mean, for the record, guys, we sometimes will reach out for interviews, comments, and guest booking to various agencies and publicists. When we were looking up McTiernan's information, it was very difficult to find a contact.
Yeah.
We found an attorney contact was the only contact we
We
could
were like,
find.
wait, why is there only an attorney? That seems very odd.
And so why was he finding information about that movie?
It doesn't really say.
Yeah, because the thing I was going to say was this: the comment about the attorney doesn't suggest that he doesn't have a publicist or an agent.
Right,
right.
I mean, I
It's the
don't.
only thing you could find.
Yeah, it's more about like it seems like it's harder to get information on the guy. He seems to be less interested in being contacted, or it's not easily available. So it's kind of interesting. It's a bit sad because I mean, when you think about those movies, like Die Hard and Predator are two of the 10 greatest action films ever made.
Yeah.
Hunt for Red October, if you call that an action movie, is easily in the top 25.
Well, it started that franchise, didn't it?
Yeah, the Jack Ryan franchise.
Yeah,
Yeah, absolutely.
And they've really kind of
Yeah.
Been very successful.
But they're not that good.
Yeah. I haven't seen the most recent one.
The Jack Ryan Shadow Recruit?
Yeah, with
I
Chris
missed it.
Pine.
I missed it. I've seen it.
But yeah, I mean, he was wiretapping two producers essentially, so you would think it would maybe be for like creative ideas,
Yeah,
or like
something.
But yeah, anyway, we don't want to harp on the guy. We
No.
wish you the best, and maybe he'll come back and make another movie someday. Since his last credit was 2003.
I
Basic.
hope you come back and make another sweet movie.
Right?
I love John McTiernan.
Like do another Die Hard with a Vengeance, like redemption. That would be incredible.
Come on the show for Die Hard with a Vengeance.
Just
We'd
come
love
on
to
the
host you.
show,
Please.
We're calling your lawyer.
Do it.
That's pretty much it, right?
Yeah, I'd say
Production
so.
development?
I'd say
Yeah.
so. We can probably move on. I mean, the movie was filmed in Jalisco, Mexico. There's not. It's as far as like how the explosions were done, all that kind of
Yeah.
stuff. I mean,
There's an hour-long documentary out there. We watched it, and we wanted to talk about it more, but honestly, that's not why you guys watch the show. You don't want us to just regurgitate
trivia.
facts that we've seen and read about. So if you want to know, check it out. It's really cool. Jean-Claude Van Damme was originally
supposed to play the Predator.
Yeah, but then they were like, you're too small, and then they had him in for just some special effects stuff that was uncredited, and he was like, I want nothing to do with this. So he just scrapped it.
Yeah, I mean, the film, if you are interested, you can find it. It's an hour-long documentary, and it's called If It Bleeds, We Can Kill It, The Making of Predator. It was made in 2001. It's got interviews with Bill Duke, Carl Weathers, McTiernan.
I actually think it's called If It Bleeds, We Can Kill It.
If it bleeds, we can kill it.
Just imagine Jean-Claude, on a branch, like holding him, because he's, how tall is
Jean-Claude?
Like 5'9", right? Yeah, something like that.
Yeah. Saw him the other day, right?
Yeah, we ran into him like a couple weeks ago.
Just a gem of a man.
He was a sweetheart.
Yep. Okay, so actually, one more thing about the production
about Jean-Claude running into
we talked about this. The filming, so it was in Mexico.
Yeah.
During the day, you can tell like these dudes are sweating, they're just dying. At night, when they're filming, anytime you see a scene that's in the dark, it's in sub-zero temperatures.
Yeah.
They're freezing.
Yep.
And then Arnold, he's got this pottery clay on him that's mud. They would try to like keep him warm, but then the clay would just harden.
Yeah.
And fall off. He was shivering so much during filming. He was so cold that he was like, "What can I do? What can I do?" So he decides to start drinking peach schnapps. He's like,
Nice.
"Oh, that'll warm me up."
Yeah.
What a manly.
Bring the body temperature down even more.
Yeah. So instead, he just got wasted on set.
He just got drunk.
He just couldn't do it. So he just had to freeze through the whole thing. Anyway, that's a fun little trivia fact.
Yeah, he also, another one of the ones I liked was that this film was going on and shooting like directly before him getting married, and he missed the final rehearsal for his wedding with Maria Shriver because he was more focused on the film. She was not happy about that.
Yeah, she'd come on set to make wedding plans with him, and the crew in Mexico thought it was hilarious to put frogs in their shower.
Oh yeah,
it scared the shit out of her.
Yeah.
Thus begins the beautiful marriage.
Yeah, absolutely.
Exactly. So let's talk a little bit about critical and box office. We can mention the fact that this movie was only made for $15 million.
Wow.
That's nothing.
Yeah, I mean, even though it is 87, you think about how much that was back then. That's not even close to what massive, like $500 million movies that are made now.
They paid Stan Winston $1.5 million to make The Predator,
which was worth every penny.
Yeah, it's 10% of the budget of this film went to Stan Winston, who is the famous effects designer who made the Terminator.
Yep.
And he was recommended to do this film through Schwarzenegger because of their work together. They stayed close friends. So Winston came in and designed, because as we said, the original Predator...
It was a joke.
Yeah, the studio kind of shipped it out, and it was this like weird... Because it was based on, Joel Silver had this idea for like a Rastafarian hunter.
Yeah.
That's where you get like the dreadlocks.
Which is cool.
Very cool. There was drawings and tentacles, and it came out, and it looked kind of like a weird combination of a cyborg with like one red eye in the middle of its head. It just wasn't intimidating or cool at all.
Yeah, Arnold just said it was a joke.
Yeah.
Like it was not... Yeah, like you said, it's not intimidating at all. No one would have watched this movie.
Yeah.
This movie would not be what it was if the Predator wasn't a badass.
So they ended up paying Stan Winston to design this thing. It's done with practical effects almost entirely, and it is played by the 7'2" actor who was also the actor that played Harry in the Hendersons, Harry.
Yeah, and also he's the black pilot at the end of the movie. The
pilot. Yeah, his name is
Kevin Peter Hall.
Kevin Peter Hall.
He's the helicopter pilot at the end of the movie?
Very end of the movie. The one,
Yeah.
who's like, what the? When Schwarzenegger's standing there.
Which is great. Like, that's such a cool thing. It's like, you just killed a Predator, here he is.
Yeah.
In human form, you know?
That's pretty cool.
That guy's 7'2".
Yeah, gigantic.
Massive.
You know what's really amazing is in that documentary, you see a lot of clips of him with the suit on, just like on set, dancing around, and it was like, he wasn't just a guy who was big. He wasn't like a big, because he's 7'2" is obviously huge.
Massive.
Not just a giant guy that puts on the suit. It was the way that he moved.
Right.
He had this graceful movement.
Yeah,
And he'd slink
absolutely.
around. And it was terrifying. I mean, just like a really...
Did you hear that? Because you know how when the Predator gets out of the netting and he's like monkeying around in the trees and camouflage, did you hear that they originally tried to put a monkey in a suit?
No.
Yeah, they actually tried to put a monkey in and it was actually a red suit at the time, so that they could go in post production and add in the Predator
And
to make
CGI
it look like he was crawling around the trees. The monkey would just take off the suit all the time and wouldn't jump around. They're like, "Fuck this, we're
Throw
scrapping
feces at the PAs.
Exactly. That's kind of a cool idea. It would have been cool.
Schwarzenegger just wasted drinking peach schnapps and
There's
getting
a
kicked out of the
monkey.
monkey. Sounds like a great set to work on.
Monkey.
Absolutely.
I mean, apparently the whole set is like this. The production behind this was a disaster, as you mentioned, with the temperature. There was locusts. There were, I mean, all kinds of leeches.
Yeah, locust leeches, just incredibly humid. It was miserable.
Horrible.
our friend Haggerty, who was on the show, the very first episode, Air Force One, was talking to us about filming
Jurassic World
in Hawaii, and it was just miserable.
Yeah.
Another guy that worked on the film showed us pictures of it, and they're like knee deep in mud, in like 100+ humidity, like just miserable.
Anything for the shot, right? That's
right.
What it comes down to.
That's what it's all about.
So yeah, $15 million to make this movie. Fox is behind it. It grossed 59 domestic and another 38 foreign, so bringing it to a total of $98 million worldwide, which adjusted is actually second, right?
The most successful.
Oh, the most. Yeah, if you adjust for box office inflation, is the most successful Predator film in the franchise.
If you look at just the straight up numbers, Alien vs. Predator is more successful, but that was also 20+ years later.
Yeah, right. So 1987, and I believe what that year, the only other big movie was Beverly Hills Cop 2.
Yeah, it came out like a month beforehand.
Not the only other big movie, but the big rival film.
Right. It was the only R-rated movie that beat this movie, and also the only R-rated movie that opened higher than this movie.
Yeah.
It came out a month beforehand. It's a great movie. I get it. But again, this movie made almost 10 times its budget. Yeah. Almost. So I wish they would have made another one with Arnold.
Yeah, absolutely. So we have a graphic to throw up really quickly, which is this is Schwarzenegger's top 10 grossing films, top 11 grossing films of all time here. Top 11 grossing films of all time here, adjusted for ticket price, because a lot of the big movies were back in the mid 80s, so it's unfair. So T2 for adjustment made $400 million, and this is just obviously domestic. This is not worldwide. But as you can see here, Predator is still, after inflation, his 9th highest grossing film of all time.
Yep. Kindergarten Cop made more money. So did Twins.
Batman and Robin.
So did Twins.
Which goes to show you that he was on his way up when this movie came out.
Yeah,
he was
absolutely.
like you said, he was on his way to becoming the greatest action hero of all time. Yeah. Then he gets into this point when he could make anything. You could make any movie with him and put it in there, and people would go watch it.
Well, as evidenced by Batman and Robin.
And Kindergarten Cop and Twins. It was not a bad movie. But then even like True Lies. True Lies is a great movie, and I can't wait till we do it on the show. It's one of my absolute favorites.
James Cameron,
But Predator
is a better movie.
Being that, I don't know about better, but maybe it is better.
I like it more.
Yeah.
I mean, it is interesting when you think that the last Olympia that he competed in was 75, and Pumping Iron chronicles that. So his earliest film work is the late 70s. It's movies like The Scavenger Hunt, Hercules in New York. These movies, Stay Hungry, I think, is one of them.
When did Conan come out?
Early 80s, 81 maybe. 81. 82 or something like that. His breakthrough was Predator, obviously, or not Predator. That was Terminator 1 in 84. But I mean, when you really think about Schwarzenegger as a global brand, 87 is like the front end of him being a global brand.
Absolutely.
Because Terminator 2 is 5 years later, or 4 years later, right? Like the movies that he made before this, for the most part, as we mentioned, are kind of throwaway action movies. Largely.
Twins came out a year later.
Right.
He made almost twice as much money.
Triplets is coming out.
Yeah. He's extremely, he just became extremely bankable, but that's kind of why, and I'll get to that later, but I think this is the greatest Schwarzenegger action hero role of all time.
Yeah.
Conan the Barbarian was pretty cool too when I was 3 or 4 years old. That was just like, what's the sweet line?
Crush your enemies. There he goes. Crush your enemies, see them driven before you, experience the lamentation of the women. That's nice. That's the line from Conan.
I'm so glad you remember that.
Yeah, I just love it. I mean, I'm a huge Schwarzenegger fan. So let's talk Critical, yeah?
Critical's very interesting for this movie. Well, actually, it's not that interesting. It's kind of exactly what you expect it to be. So, like always, we always pull from IMDb and Rotten Tomatoes. And with our Rotten score, it was interesting because, they have top critics, all critics, and they have the audience. And so with the audience, they gave it an 87. It makes perfect sense. Okay. This movie's awesome. It's a classic, incredibly enjoyable. All critics gave it a 78%. Again, you're like, okay, I get it.
I could get that.
Yeah, it makes sense. It's good. And then you go to top critics, it's got a 40%.
Wow.
It's interesting that the all critics review of 78% is identical to the IMDb 7.8 that it got.
Absolutely.
Which I find that very interesting.
Oh yeah, do you? I know you love the IMDb top 20.
I think it's great.
But we go through and you do a little more research. You find out the reason it has 40% is because there's only 5 top critic reviews of it because it is so old. 3 of them which are negative, 2 which are positive. So that makes the 40%. So that one I feel like is kind of nullified this week.
Yeah. One of our fans at one point asked me why we only did 1981 and later films. And not to say that we couldn't at some point do films older. Like, I'm actually open to it. It's one of those rules we could break.
Yeah.
But it gets difficult to put the movies in context with the movies we do now if you start to get much older than that. Even as far back as 81, like a movie like this from 87, the box office totals, it's hard to compare them.
In every sense. Box office, what they're doing now.
The way they were reviewed, the actors, what they're up to. It's harder to slot them in. The best movies for our show for the purposes of what we do are the ones from like 95, 96, 97, 98. It gets a little bit more current in terms of what movies are doing now.
Absolutely.
Not to say we couldn't. It's just a little bit of an explanation. So you pulled some reviews here, it looks like.
I pulled a couple reviews. We'll start off with the negative one from Derek Adams, who did Time Out. And he said, with its stilted dialogue and hammy acting, the film has the look of an expensive production, but the feel of a B-movie, delivering the sort of undemanding monster mayhem Arnie's fans have come to expect. Which, really?
Now, when did he write this, though?
That was probably written at the time it came out.
No, this was actually written in the early 2000s.
That's what I'm saying. It sounds like it's written in the early 2000s.
But almost all of the reviews that you find for this movie are written 2000 on.
I would like to know what Derek Adams thought in 1987.
Right.
When this came out, because I bet you if he was alive, yeah, exactly.
And you know what? That's reflective of what I was talking about, right? The whole thing,
absolutely.
The whole thing of like, there was a period of time where these kind of movies, these action movies, like in the mid 2000s, where they were still recent enough. Like, for instance, we did Con Air last week, 1997. If you were writing a review of Predator and it was 2001, you would be like, well, they're still making crappy action movies in 1997 that I saw recently that I remember. So this is just a precursor to those crappy action movies. Whereas years later, now we've swung back around and there's no budget. I'm going to drop my pen. I'll just hold it. Thank you. You swing back around, and nowadays there's no budget for bad scripts. There's no budget to just make action movies. It's not like you just throw it. It's a franchise or it's not. Or it's straight to video or it's not. You don't get to just make $100 million movies just to make them if you want to. It's very rare that happens anymore. Yeah. So I think nowadays you go back and you look at the whole genre, the action movie genre, and it's harder to put a movie like Con Air and Predator next to each other and actually call them the same quality, the same genre, because they're both action movies.
Well, the thing about this too is that, like, I don't consider us movie critics, but we love movies, and we are kind of critics. We really are.
We're critics.
We are.
Yeah.
But it's not in this sense.
Sure.
But I feel it's so... They do themselves a disservice by giving reviews like this.
Yeah,
and we found this out when we did the Rambo 2 episode, Rambo First Blood Part 2.
Yeah.
When JT and Finstock were on here. And you and I both got swayed about halfway through the episode, and it changed our opinion of Rambo completely.
For the better or for the worse?
For the better. Because we came into it like, this is campy, this is stupid, this is hard to watch, like the action is blah, 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 blah. But then you go through and you actually pay respects to the shots and the things that they do and the way they set things up and the era that it came out.
Oh, yeah, that was another one, jeez.
Absolutely, and you have to respect these movies. So if you're writing this review in 2000 plus and you're sitting there like, well, look at the action, look at the grittiness of the film, and look at it's campy. Like, no, dude. It's 25 years old is what it is.
Yeah.
That's what it really is.
It's still sweet.
And it's still completely badass.
Yeah.
And so by the other reviews, we got, Douglas Pratt, with the Hollywood Reporter. It's so lean, so exciting, and so imaginative that you can watch it every month or two, year in and year out, and never get tired of it.
That's how I feel about it.
That's perfect.
Yeah.
Well, I took a good 15 years off of seeing this, and I recently watched it, and that's true. Right. I feel that's completely true. I'm glad I took the time off, but yeah, this movie was pretty solid.
We talked because originally the show this week was just gonna be me and Bateman, and we talked to Jason. We're like, dude, you should come on the show. You got your comic thing. We know you love the movie. And you're like, I don't know. I think I have to work. So he goes home and he watches the movie. He's like, I'm doing the show. Yeah, I'm coming on the show, and I'm
to do Predator, right? So Blake Howard from TV, that movie show says it's the perfect blend of explosive machismo and thrills, where the setting is almost as ominous and terrifying as the extraterrestrial villain. That is great to me.
Yeah.
Because the Predator is frightening. The fact that they're in the sticks like that, they're out in the jungle by themselves is frightening.
They can't get picked up.
Yeah, it's awesome.
It's a war zone. Like it's a perfect environment.
So speaking of the war zone, let's talk ultimate action scene. Now, guys, when we started the show, we used to do something where we would really focus on the production of a couple specific scenes, and we would say, this is what we think is the ultimate action scene, and how is this made? Blah 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 blah. It's something we do less of now. It's more like a discussion of what is the ultimate action scene.
Right.
And in this film, it's hard to say, and I want to know what you guys think, because I know that there's the scene in the village. There's the fight with its tons of explosions. It's very reminiscent of like First Blood Part 2.
Right.
There's the scene where
the team starts to get picked off.
Yeah, and the big sort of battle where Mac goes nuts.
Yeah.
I got you. Yeah, and
He totally loses it.
I'm gonna have some fun.
Bill Duke is great.
he's awesome. He's
Have
awesome.
some fun.
Yeah. So I have some fun.
And then the third one.
And then the third one, which is like basically Schwarzenegger covering himself in mud and getting ready to take on the Predator, and then just that whole fight and him weaving through the jungle with the spear.
Right.
And it's hard to know, like, what from an old school action standpoint, if we were doing this in 1987, of course we would choose the village explosion.
Right, so that's the thing, is that you look at this and we have, it's like the three categories of what makes an action movie scene.
Yeah.
So Jason here thinks that the ultimate action scene is the village, right?
Well, yeah, because with that ultimate action scene, as you guys are posing, I'm thinking the amount of explosions and, the guys diving out of a thatched hut when two, grenade launchers just launch two huge bombs. It's just kind of funny. Like, you won't be diving out; you will just be incinerated. But yeah, this is what I thought was quintessential ultimate
You get the camera
action
walk
scene.
up with the gun behind Arnold and he pops him in the face.
I mean, they launch some grenades in these thatched houses and huts and stuff, and then they shoot on top of it. It's
These guys have
nonstop. So
a limitless amount of ammo.
yeah.
Lance, you're bleeding. I ain't got time to bleed. Okay.
Yeah, and
You
then
got time to duck. I love that guy. I just love this whole movie so much.
it's one of the most quotable movies.
Yeah.
And then you go into the second one, which is the one that I kind of feel like is the ultimate action scene. But then you think about it, and it's kind of like that moment in horror movies.
Yeah.
The first person has died. Now you're being hunted.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like a horror movie action scene. People start getting picked off in grisly ways. You see their bodies. You see their entrails. Like you said, you get Bill Duke going nuts. You get everyone going nuts. Like you get Billy who's just like, I'm ripping off my shirt, dropping my gun, and I'm gonna go hand to hand with this dude.
Yeah.
Out in the forest.
It was definitely a cool scene when Dutch also realized, he's using the trees, and then they even, the way they shot it, they kind of come back from him, and he's just kind of like, wheels are turning.
Right.
And you're just like, wow.
What do you think his weapon? Like, guy's so sweet.
And then we go into the third one.
Yeah, well, I was gonna say one of the things in the village scene that I forgot that I think is so sweet is like clearly they were like, we need a moment to show just how strong Schwarzenegger is. So let's have him lift this car.
Yeah.
Let's just have him just like strain and just be like, just like lift a car.
Completely. So
Yeah.
that's why I love that. I think that scene's great.
Like Ferrigno does that in Pumping Iron. They show him like lift a car. But I mean, it's just absurd. Like,
what's he doing?
Yeah. What the hell is he doing? It's showtime. Yeah. It's amazing. It's amazing. I think it's got to be for me the covering himself in mud, setting the traps, all his like Boy Scout traps for the Predator, and going at him, and he realizes that he can't see him. He can't see me, and I love the exposition where it shows the Predator can't see him, like it shows his eye view, and then Schwarzenegger's like, he can't see me.
It's like looks
wheels are
right
always
at him and he
turning.
kills like a mouse. It's like, he can't see me. You're like, yeah, no shit.
You made a great point actually when we talked about that a little bit, right? Because we talked about the scene in the jungle where they just start unloading, right? Not a thing. Not a fucking thing. Yeah.
Well, they got him once, right? Somebody
The
got
clip
him.
is like, I hate how the chick, like, she's like got the alien blood on her. She sees it on the thing and she's just like,
Yeah.
And then later on they talk about it, she's like, it's bleeding. Like,
Yeah.
what about green blood?
Yeah,
what about neon green blood?
I made notes about her, and I said she's keen to blood.
Yeah.
Great side boob.
Yeah.
And she doesn't die.
Yeah.
She doesn't die.
No, but your point you made about they unload, they spend all their ammo. They literally unload the minigun on the jungle. And you're like, that's kind of stupid. But, right, what was it you said at?
But then later on, when Arnold and the alien and Predator are fighting, Arnold swings across. I think he's holding on to one of the other trees, and then the Predator goes down, and he throws like the spear and blows the thing up.
Yeah.
The Predator turns around and just starts unloading.
Firing, yeah.
It's actually to me, I was like, that's the opposite scene.
Same thing.
Which was amazing, which was kind of cool. Like,
oh, that is great. That's a very good. Yeah, I like that a lot.
I thought that was cool. So I do want to get into favorite line. So guys, again, if you're watching, if you want to tweet at any of us live, you're welcome to. I'm at Ben Bateman Media.
I am at Andrew Ghai
And
Twitter.
If you want to comment on Jason's Starlight Tavern Instagram during the show, you're welcome to.
Yeah.
Or leave comments. But we want to know what you guys think here as well. We're gonna go into favorite line, hero villain ranking, recast. This is the most interactive part of the show. So let's get into favorite line. This is one that's gonna be very hard to decide. I've been quoting this movie for 20 years, and as I said, most of my favorite lines are like the unintentional ones where Schwarzenegger just says something.
Right,
It's just the, like you said, it's the confidence behind the delivery that makes it so funny to me. You have all the classics, right? Like I Ain't Got Time to Bleed and Dylan, You Son of a Bitch.
Yeah.
I mean, but what do you guys think? What stands out to you? What's like if you had to choose one, maybe two at the most?
You ugly motherfucker.
Yeah.
Is by far, like, I mean, and everybody, I think, working on the thing.
Yeah, knows that.
Knows that one. Get to the chopper.
Yeah, of course.
And then, sorry, so this is 3, but if it bleeds, we can kill it.
Yeah.
So I
Do it! Kill me! I'm here!
Yeah.
Do it! Get to the chopper!
Go! Whoever does the Arnold voice always does those too.
Always.
have to do them.
Classics.
But then you forget, like, stick around. Like,
Yeah.
it's pretty
That's what I'm
funny.
saying. There's like 50 quotables in the movie.
Almost everything he says is
Yeah.
quotable. So I have a couple. Actually, I have like 10.
I know.
One of my favorites is, "You're ghosting us, motherfucker.
Yeah.
I don't care who you are back in the world. You give away our position one more time.
Great.
I'll bleed you. Real quiet. Leave you here."
And Weathers goes, yeah. Love it.
And then the other one that I really like is, "You're not scared of no man." He goes, "There's something out there waiting for us, and it ain't no man. We're all gonna die."
Yeah, that's
Yeah, incredible.
great line.
So incredible.
good.
So many, yeah. So those are fantastic lines. Like for me, the one that my buddy Zeke and I used to quote all the time is when he finds Jim Hopper and he picks up the tags and he's like, "Jim," he's like, "Jim Hopper," and then he walks over and he looks and he's like, "Dylan, come here." And he's like, "I knew this man. Green Berets, the Fort Bragg. What the hell are they doing here?" That's one of my favorite lines in the whole movie. I love it. Like that's really great.
Just the Green Berets, the foot.
Yeah, Green Berets,
just
yeah.
that one, like 3 words is just incredible.
That one, and then also when he finds out that Dylan set him up, he's like, "You set us up," and he's like, what's he say to him? He says something about like
assets, the expendable assets.
no, because he's
Yeah,
like
assets.
he's like, and you knew he's like, "So why my team?" And he's like, "Because I needed someone who could get the job done." And he goes, "So you cooked up a story and threw the 6 of us into a meat grinder. What happened to you, Dylan? You used to be somebody I could trust." And he goes, "I woke up. Why don't you?" Yeah, just incredible.
Great.
Like those are my
Their
favorites.
interaction is phenomenal.
Amazing. So like, those are. I mean, there's a million, as we said.
I do have one more honorable mention that I gotta say, and
Yeah.
that's when it's when they realized that they just unloaded all the rounds from the minigun and everything. He goes, "No blood, no bodies, not a fucking trace. We hit nothing." Yeah, it like drags out the end of that. It's so good.
The chick doesn't get that much airtime too,
No.
but she did have a cool one. I did write. It was she speaks in Spanish and then she says, in English, "It means the demon who make trophies of men."
Yeah.
And
it's a great
I'm like,
line.
all right, that's pretty cool, for
I also think Jesse Ventura.
side boob.
Son of a bitch is dug in like an Alabama tick. It's got some real good lines. I mean, just that's we say we can literally quote the entire movie. The whole thing's good.
You could sit here and
Or
do
like,
this
what
forever.
was the one with like the broke dick dog?
I'm not sure.
Yeah, I can't remember that one either.
I don't know.
Yeah, it was a good one.
Funny thing about, I totally just remember this. Funny thing about Billy, Sonny Landham, the actor, the insurance company for the film insisted that they hire bodyguards for him.
Oh, because he was a troublemaker, right?
Yeah, it wasn't
the bar fight guy.
It wasn't to protect him. It was because he would always get wasted and try to fight other actors.
Who was
this?
Billy.
Billy.
Interesting.
Yeah, or he'd just get upset on set and he'd just get in fights.
But he is Native American, right?
Yeah, he's the calm one.
Yeah, but
I can't believe Jim Hopper
Sorry.
walked into an ambush. I don't believe you did, General.
Yeah, it's
not
great.
to offend any Native Americans out there who are
we'll
drunks.
just move on.
Really incredible. Let's talk about hero villain rankings. So this is where we kind of and this is a tough one, guys. I know we promise this every single week and we don't do it, but we have the list at home and we just need to make a graphic out of it so we can throw it up here for you. But where would you rank the hero and the villain on the all-time hero villain action movie list?
Right.
I have a very strong opinion about this one.
I know you do, so I think that you should start off.
I believe that Dutch is one of the 3 greatest action heroes of all time. I know
bold
that's
statement.
extreme. I know it's bold, but
We haven't ever touched the top 3.
no, I think Rambo for both of us was like somewhere in the top 5.
Yeah.
Dutch to me is the best action character that Schwarzenegger ever played. It's perfect for him.
Yeah.
And honestly, I think like he and Tom Cruise are the greatest action stars ever. So basically, like it's just I can't think of almost anyone I would put ahead of Dutch.
So you take Dutch over T2. Or I mean T800 and T2.
Yeah. I think for me that was like I want to have a list in front, but I want to say that's like 8th or 9th.
Right.
Somewhere right in there. I mean, it's fantastic. Just Dutch is just the best. He's my favorite.
He's great.
He beats the Predator.
He beats the Predator.
And then
the T800 beats the T1000, the indestructible machine.
I mean, we're talking top 10 all timers.
I know.
And then the Predator for me, the Predator is a top 10 action film.
It's got to be.
Yeah.
For me, I would totally agree with that. I'll talk about Dutch in a second, but I do agree that the Predator's top 10.
Any live chat comments for us?
Not yet. About this, but come on, guys.
Yeah, what do you think? What do you
Give
think?
it to us. But yeah, so I'd say Predator top 10, Dutch. Oh man, top 15.
Top blasphemy.
I know.
Blasphemy.
Or maybe 10th.
Sure.
So you think this is Arnold's greatest role of all time?
It's his
Have you
greatest
seen Kindergarten
action
Cop?
hero role. That's what I'm saying. In terms of action heroes, like for instance, what if I liked him better in True Lies?
Well, yeah,
it wouldn't matter because he's awesome in True Lies.
Right.
But in this movie, he's a
Dutch, the
fucking
character.
commando. He is everything that he was supposed to be in the movie Commando, but he's not corny or stupid.
Yeah.
He's just awesome.
Yeah.
Like there's no other Schwarzenegger role where I believe him more as a stone cold badass. Like it's just if you were,
I mean, again, sorry, but Conan, he's
you put up Dutch against any of the other characters, and I believe he'd be like tougher, he'd be smarter, he'd be more cool. That's just what I think. So Dutch is top 3 for me.
I got a he's 5th here.
That's strong.
So that's
I mean,
good.
strong.
Again,
I consider
top 5 is
5th.
I'd say top 10.
You'd say top 10 as
I've got a problem though with the Predator.
Sure.
Oh yeah, you made it. This is a very valid point. I like this a lot.
Now the Predator is badass.
Yeah.
But to me, it seemed like a young Predator. He maybe came there. They told him you need to bring 7 skulls back, and when he picks up Arnold and he checks out his skull, and he's pretty much like, this is like the ultimate guy that I need to bring back. Then takes everything off and like, all right, let's no more like me blasting you. Let's kind of fight. But he's cloaked the whole time before this. And so I'm not saying that's comp it out, but like he's always cloaked. He's hitting you from long ways away, and then he does beat the crap out of Arnold, but Arnold leading him to the trap. Yeah, and then it does happen.
Picked up in the net.
When he picks up in the net, he screams like a little bitch, which is hilarious. I watched it twice, and he really does. Like, and it's funny. The subtitles are like Predator screeches.
Yeah,
and it's
exactly.
like okay, and so then he gets hit by the tree trunk, and then he just blows himself up like suicide. Like it's like So to
he's
me,
pure evil.
Yeah, I mean he did take them out one by one. And some of them you didn't even see how he killed them, like Billy and stuff. You didn't see how, but so I just don't think like he's top 10. I'd say top 20.
You know what? I just got swayed by someone on here. I think was it Brian? Brian, was it you again? Damn it, man! It was Brian. So he wrote the T800 is a robot that is supposed to be that displays a man. Yeah, Dutch is a man that kills a super alien with incredibly sophisticated technology.
I agree, Ryan.
I agree too. I digress. So yes, I swap it. I switch it.
So I
put Dutch ahead of the T800.
So he's like 8th or 9th for you, maybe.
Yeah, because he's still killing in Terminator. It's like a Terminator against a Terminator. Right. This is a man against an alien. A super alien.
You're my boy, Hurst.
Damn it, Hurst.
I see now why you cry.
Yeah. It's fantastic. I'll mention it one more time. You guys should all look up the Terminator 2 trailer recut, the one where it's like he was a gay Terminator. It's very funny. It's very funny. Yes. Anyway, so let's talk about the last couple categories. So did we all say our Predator ranking?
Yeah, we did. Let's get into our recast.
Yeah, so there's a lot here. So I'm gonna just, for the sake of not taking like 35 minutes to do our recasts here, because all of us were supposed to recast 5 roles this time. Right. And I would have almost done all 7 because I like the whole team so much, but we skipped Hawkins and the other white guy. Not a fucking thing. That guy whose name I can never remember the character of.
I can't remember his name either.
But we are going to be recasting Schwarzenegger, Weathers, Billy, Bill Duke, and Ventura. Yeah. So Billy, Blaine, Mac, Dutch, and Dylan. And I'm just going to have each of us. This is how it's going to work. You're going to get to explain it.
I recast the chick too.
Well, you can throw it as an Easter egg if you want. Yeah. You're going to get to explain it. 5-10 seconds of explaining why. We're all going to nod, disagree, and then move on. Otherwise, it's going to take us forever because it's 15 recasts right now. Right. So let's start with, we'll go from back to front. Let's all start with our Billy recast.
Billy. I went with, and I know he's too damn short, Tony Jaa.
He's like 5'7".
He's 5'6".
He can't play him.
He can play him. He's shredded. He can fight. He's the type of guy, just like Billy, that would go at the end of the movie and be like, fuck this. I'm dropping my gun. I'm going to go hand to hand with this guy and then get my spine ripped out.
I mean, I like the intensity. He's too small. Spiritual,
You're too small.
Adam Beach, he's just a quintessential Native American actor who's pretty badass.
What would I know him from?
I can't think of right off the back, but you put him in, you see that picture,
Fair
you'll
enough.
be like, yeah.
I went with Jason Momoa, who is soon going to be playing Aquaman, and he played Khal Drogo in Game of Thrones. I think he's not really Native American necessarily.
No, but he can play that.
I was going to pick him. I just didn't.
He seems. I think he used him once before.
Oh, Jason B. It's so funny. I actually thought about this guy. It's the guy from like Wind Talkers.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, yeah, he could do it.
I just thought he's kind of old now. Okay, maybe not.
All right, let's move on. Jesse Ventura, Blaine Sparich. Who do you got?
Blaine. Tom Hardy, actually, because I could see...
We use Tom Hardy on the show every week.
It's my first time. So.
Exactly.
I just think he could be a good... He could beef up and be psycho.
Could be a badass.
Totally.
Yeah.
I think he'd be great in that role. I didn't use him because I try to avoid him because I use him every week. I had two, but I'm going to stick with Kurt Angle. He was Koba.
Koba.
Nice.
The great Koba.
He's massive, he's bald, he's jacked, he's crazy.
That's a good one.
It's perfect.
Yeah, he doesn't have to say much either.
No,
which is
not
perfect.
at all.
I went with another character from the movie Warrior, which everybody knows we love so much. I went with Frank Grillo, who is the Frank Campana, very unorthodox trainer.
Turn your hips up and in.
Nice. He's also in Captain America: Winter Soldier. He's a badass.
Kingdom's a cool MMA show.
He's a badass, and he's
I think it's called King.
great. He's like physically intimidating, and I met him semi recently, and he made a very vulgar comment to me, which not in a negative way. Just it was a vulgar, extremely vulgar comment that was like, this guy. This guy could do it.
Yeah,
he could be like the kind of like if they cast him as a racist guy, shave your head, like you know, and it's
racist, sexist.
It is very important, and I know this is taking longer than my 10 seconds, but when thinking about recasting, we often consider like, do you stick with necessarily their race or age? Can you shift it? Mm-hmm. Usually age is pretty important, but sometimes can a black guy be white, Native American guy be Asian, whatever. Like, and it only is relevant if it has something to do with the character. Originally, I was thinking that Bill Duke and Jesse Ventura didn't need to be. They could be shifted.
Right.
Well, the more I thought about it, the more I was like, here's this southern white kind of racist, probably.
He's a racist, bigot, sexist.
Yeah. And then here's this super intense black dude, right? And I was like, you could shift it around, but then I was like, no, not, because they're best friends,
right?
They're comrades.
When Ventura dies, Duke loses it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. They have complete respect for one another, even though he's a complete racist and he is a very
so you kind of have to stick with the.
Yeah, you got to stick with that.
Yeah, so I think it's important. So I think Grillo and obviously when I get to mine, I'll get to mine. So what do you have for Mac? What do you have for Bill Duke? What do you got, Jason?
Jaimin
Hansu.
I went with the same.
Yeah, you guys both went Jaimin Hansu.
I mean, he just could play. Like I could see him go crazy.
Yeah,
he's got intense eyes. Yeah, and I think he could. I agree. The when I went this is I was like, this is a guy who doesn't need to say much, but you need to be intimidated by him when you see him if he wants to look intense, and this guy can do that.
Yeah.
I went with Terry Crews.
You think Terry Crews?
Oh yes, I don't care what you say.
He's jacked.
He can play it. He can do it because I know he's always like he's one of the best comedic actors like for what he does. I bet you he could play crazy serious in this movie.
Maybe.
Because he's only in like. I mean, that's not true. Bill Duke's actually a pretty large part of this movie. I think Terry Crews could pull it off.
Fair enough. I'm not gonna sit here and argue with you.
I want to throw it out there.
Yes.
Lance Reddick.
Oh, love Lance Reddick.
Oh, that's good.
Daniels,
that's very good.
Daniels from The Wire.
Yep.
Reddick could do it. He's intense. Cheekbones.
Yeah. Let's get to Dylan.
Let's get to Dylan.
Dylan.
I needed someone who could get the job done.
I want you to go, and then I want Jason to go because I wanted to use the one that Jason used, and I just couldn't think of it.
I went with a pretty interesting one, I think, and it's not one where I feel like he matches the character that well. But in my mind, I was like, if I was going to remake this movie, I would make it deadly serious, and I would want my guy who's playing Dylan to be iconic and recognizable, just like Carl Weathers was.
Right.
But in this way that seeing him play kind of a weasel is good. Like Weathers playing a weasel was like
it's perfect.
Surprising.
Yeah.
You know, because he was pretty honorable as Apollo Creed.
Yeah.
So I went with Will Smith. I think seeing Will Smith being kind of a shit weasel would be awesome.
Yeah, I'm not going to argue with you. I just don't like it. I just don't like Will Smith.
I mean, neither do I, but he's a big dude. He could get jacked.
Yeah.
He needs to rival whoever your Dutch is.
I mean,
Jackness.
mine's not great, so I got no room to talk. I have Omar Epps.
Represent.
Really?
Yeah.
It's not very
Omar
good.
Epps, huh?
It's not happening. You know, I let a lot of your really bad recasts slide by. You're like the worst at the recast. And
I'm
Omar
pretty
Epps,
good at it, actually.
I think he's terrible, audience. Why don't you tell me what you guys think? Tell me what you think about that.
Jason, I think you have the best of
He
them.
does.
Idris Elba.
Yeah.
I mean, he just
bell.
he's such a great actor that I think he would just
Love
be
Idris Elba.
phenomenal.
It's
with this
perfect.
role.
That is the best recast for this role.
I still like Will Smith more.
That's because
Who'd you
you're
guys
bad at
cast
this.
as? Who'd you guys cast as Dutch?
I think I went with another one that you guys probably always use, but which was Dwayne Johnson, just because it would be amazing to see a Predator pick up Dwayne Johnson by his neck.
He's basically, especially now in his career, because of how jacked he is.
He's Arnold.
He's the most quintessential action star for if you want an action character. My only hesitation for using him, and I thought about it very carefully.
His
this one.
acting is not there yet, or
No. I actually think it's like not Schwarzenegger was ever a great actor. It was it was more like
You bite your tongue.
I would want someone who could really sell intensity and a little more dramatic intensity in this movie if I was going to try to make it as serious as I'd want to see it made nowadays.
Southland Tales. He was really good in that.
Like, I love The Rock. Huge fan. So I'm going to jump in. I'll give my response. I went with Hugh Jackman. And he's 6'3". He's jacked out of his mind. We've all seen how muscular that guy can get. I think he could put the size on to match Schwarzenegger if he needed to. And more than anything, that thing that he does when he gets crazy in movies, where he's like, no! And he's like, goes kind of... Like, I feel like seeing that in the jungle against the Predator, I'd be really in on that.
Yeah, no, he's got a very good. He's got a very good crazy man.
Yeah.
I went with Hemsworth.
Chris.
He's big. He's massive. He's got an accent. I think he'd be a good Dutch.
He could do it.
Absolutely, he could do it. If you think Will Smith could play Dylan, then Chris Hemsworth could definitely play Dutch.
Look, there's artistic choices.
Let's move on.
Oh, and I recast the chick to Alice Braga.
Who's that?
She was in Braga. She was in I Am Legend. With
Oh,
Will Smith.
yeah. Okay, she was opposite the fantastic actor Will Smith.
Somebody said Batista, Jesse Batista, is that the man with the iron fist?
Okay.
He was in for Ventura, and I did think about that. I think it'd be good. But let's move on. Let's keep going.
It is hilarious to imagine if Cage or Cruise had played. This is Cage versus Cruise, guys. Section where we, for about 8 seconds, talk about what would happen if Nick Cage or Tom Cruise was to play the main character in this film.
Right.
Seeing Tom Cruise against a Predator, he's like 3.5 feet
You would
shorter.
get ripped in half.
That wouldn't work.
No.
He couldn't pull it off. I mean, I love Cruise to death, but like he couldn't pull this off.
Neither of these guys. You have like
I can't see
the
Cage
one thing that
doing it.
Arnold said about this movie and why he thinks it's so successful is because this ensemble cast was just massive jack dudes.
Bodybuilders.
Exactly.
Cast
Essentially,
of bodybuilders
yeah.
and future politicians.
Cage and
Taken
Cruz.
out one by one. I mean,
Yeah.
it's really cool.
I mean, Cage and Cruz could be one of the two white guys, like Hawkins or the other guy whose name we can't remember, but that's about it.
Yeah, it just wouldn't work. So it's not applicable. We can talk Cruise. We can talk Cruise or Cage accents all we want, but we do enough of that on this show.
Yes, we do.
So finally, we get into the last category here, guys, and this is which of the 3 action movie categories does this movie fit into? Now, I think this one will be very interesting. The 3 categories we discuss are totally legitimate. These are movies that stand on their own as dramatic pieces that are very high quality and don't feel like you're having to explain them as action movies. They're just great movies that happen to be action movies.
Right.
Die Hard, The Fugitive. You have totally ridiculous movies that kind of just fall off a cliff, make you laugh. It feels almost like they're a parody at times of themselves. Con Air, Face Off.
Right.
And then you have ridiculously legitimate, which is the middle category. This is the sort of zenith of the action movie category. It's movies that are campy but engaging the whole time. They feel awesome and intense, but they feel a little bit tongue-in-cheek sometimes. And generally speaking, there's at least one performance sort of hidden in the movie that is a bit...
What's an example of...
Totally legitimate.
The Rock.
ridiculously legitimate.
The Rock,
Yeah, The Rock.
Point Break, Speed. These are movies that, they're almost legit. They're kind of in the middle. And
Popcorn Talk just said Ronda Rousey is Dutch? Question mark?
I really, really believe strongly that this movie is totally legitimate. Even though it's campy at moments, I think it's totally legit.
I'm going to debate you on that.
Okay.
And the reason is because when I was watching this, I was like, oh yeah, it's totally legit, definitely. When you watch The Rock, it's an incredibly quotable movie.
Yep.
But they're mostly badass, epic quotes from Ed Harris. There's a few jokey ones from Sean Connery and Nick Cage.
Yeah.
This whole movie, every single thing we've quoted,
silly.
We all laugh after we quote it. Every single one. This movie is not totally legitimate. I thought it was because it is very believable. The whole situation and them fighting the Predator and the battle, it is. But when you go back and you actually look at this movie from that point, where every single thing that we've quoted for the last 72 minutes, we've all laughed at.
This is like my argument for Con Air, basically.
Exactly. It is exactly
you're
your argument
reversing
for
it on
Con
me.
Air. Exactly. And it's 100% true, man, because this movie is not totally legitimate. It's ridiculously legitimate.
Yeah,
it is.
I second that.
Yeah.
I think it's ridiculously legitimate.
It's so good, but it's because stick around, Dylan, you son of a bitch, Green Berets. I know, every line, every single line.
You swayed me.
Yes!
It's ridiculous legit.
Mike Epps!
Middle category. I hate it. It means that there's another movie in the middle category now that has to fight for relevance. Yeah. That middle category is so friggin' packed.
It's perfect.
Everyone that you're doing is always...
That's where you want them to end up.
Yeah.
Because they're the best. But I mean, like, the legit category, like Terminator 2's ended up over there. Mm-hmm. Mission Impossible 3 has ended up over there. Like, it's... Anyway... You're right. You guys are dead on. It's close for me, and it's because of all those moments, of the dramatic moments and the terrifying moments, that I want to put it in.
Right.
But those are what makes it ridiculously legit.
Yeah, exactly.
Because of the quality that balances out the humor.
Yeah.
Anyway, all right, fair enough. Tell us what you guys think. So thank you for stopping by for another episode of Action Movie Anatomy, the Predator edition. Thank you, Jason Sparich, for coming by and hanging out with us. Now, thanks, Jason does a comic book. He does a web comic that is now in print.
Correct. We did a print for... I went recently to Boston Comic Con, where my buddy I write it with, he lives, and we printed it out. But that's not what we actually started at Indiegogo to make a bigger version of it.
Nice.
Okay. Why don't you give the audience like a quick breakdown of what it's about?
It's pretty much Cheers in Space. My co-writer Bob Sally writes a really cool sci-fi comic called Salvagers.
Okay.
And because it's independent, it took him like 4 months at a time to do each issue. And he's like, I wanted people to still like this sci-fi kind of genre, so why don't we make a comedy kind of version of it and put a bar in space? And the Predator actually shows up in the second one.
Nice.
Love it. And so yes, we just throw in Kirk and all these cool characters. It's just a one-off, and it's a free webcomic at starlighttavern.com. We've got a Facebook page. I just started an Instagram.
What's the Instagram?
It's starlight_tavern.
Okay.
And it's just fun to write. Juan Cali is our artist, who is amazing. He lives in Colombia.
Good.
Yeah,
and
the art is phenomenal.
He's amazing. Our colorist is Don Matias, and he does his own called Penizzles, his own little comic. But it was cool for Boston Comic Con because all three of us were there: the writer, the colorist, and myself. Juan lives in Colombia. He couldn't make it, but such a cool experience, and we're just trying to
ramp it up.
Yeah, every Wednesday we do it. So we just did one right now, and it's really fun.
Awesome. Well, it's very high quality, and I know you're working on some other stuff too.
It's very funny. It's very enjoyable.
Yeah, I always get a kick out of it. So it's a newspaper comic essentially. It's one page.
Exactly.
That's beautifully done. Like as you said, Cheers in Space. It's playing on classic sci-fi genres and throwing them into a newspaper.
And being a webcomic, it's for free, But the thing is, like with this Indiegogo, we're trying to. Some people like physical copies, and I mean, I love it. Like when we printed out this little small print for Boston Comic Con, it was so well received, and just even myself, I was like, wow, I want
awesome.
a bigger one.
Check it out, guys. StarlightTavern.com, please.
And Drew, if the people want to find you, where can they find you?
You can find me at Andrew Ghai on Twitter. Please get at me about the show. Anything you'd like to talk about, I'm always there. You guys can find me at Ben Bateman Media. Please feel free to check out some of the other shows on Popcorn Talk. Anatomy of a Movie is the regular dramatic sort of appraisal of films that aren't action-based that comes out every single week. You can check that out. I believe those come out on Fridays. Yep.
And those are great, as well as the fact that we have Popcorn Talk Action Movie Anatomy mugs coming that we will be giving away as contests. The first step to doing that is review us on iTunes. If you're listening to this, you go in and you leave us a review on iTunes. We put a bunch of complicated stipulations out there last week. We will update those. Start by reviewing us on iTunes and we'll talk.
That's right.
We want to give some mugs away, guys, so please get on that with us. And otherwise, we will see you next week.
Thanks for stopping by.
From producers Maria Menounos, Kevin Undergaro, Phil Svitek, and the entire Popcorn Talk Network, we would like to thank you for tuning in. For questions or comments, be sure to visit popcorntalk.com. I'm Sir Richard Wentworth, and this has been a presentation of the Popcorn Talk Network. The views expressed herein are those of the hosts only and do not necessarily reflect the views of the Popcorn Talk Network or its owners or principals.